Greetings my lovelies, and thank you for stopping by the channel today. It's the first book review of the year! Yay! Oh, in all honesty, I did finish this book series because there's only a duality last year, but I just hadn't gotten around to reviewing it. So, without further ado, here is the Mermaid Saga by Takahashi Rumiko. So if that name sounded familiar to you, that is the creator of Inuyasha, Ranma and Ranma 1/2. I haven't read or watched any of Ranma 1/2, but I am an avid lover of Inuyasha. And most of my friends can contest to that. That was really the anime that really got me cemented into the anime world. Like I said, this one is a duality. I happened to stumble across it as I was working through buying the omnibuses of Inuyasha because it is a long series and I do have a limited amount of space. So I was trying to find the thick guys and I happened to stumble across this and I was like, oh my god, mermaids! By my favorite author. Let's check this out. So, awesome segue right on into the world and the premise of this book. So when you think of a mermaid, undoubtedly you're probably thinking of like The Little Mermaid or like Siren of the CW or just kind of anything of that nature. We in the western portions of the world kind of have this romanticized view of mermaids. They're lovely creatures that seduce men sometimes and yada yada yada. Apparently that's not the case for the Japanese. I don't want to speak for the rest of Asia, but at least in this premise with theirs, mermaids are more of like horror creatures, which honestly is really interesting. And I like seeing familiar mythological creatures done in different flavorings, as it were. The same thing as with Devil's Line, which seems to be heavily inspired, which seems to be an interesting twist on vampires. So I will link that up there. If you don't have no idea what I'm talking about, go check it out. It's a great series, a little spicy, but other than that, it's delicious. The basic rule in this world is that if you eat the flesh of a mermaid, you can become immortal. That doesn't happen a lot though. You end up becoming this like weird fishy monster thing that just terrorizes the world until someone kills you. But if you're lucky or unlucky, depending on how you look at immortality, once you eat the flesh of a mermaid, you become immortal. You can't die. I think the only way that you can die though is if someone takes your head, but other than that, you can be stabbed, you can be shot, you can be burned to death, drowned, starved, whatever. In a couple of days, you'll pop right back up like nothing happened. And if this existence becomes too much for you, the legend says that if you eat the flesh of a mermaid again, you will go back to being human. And the basic premise of this book, of these two manga volumes, revolve around two characters who have eaten the flesh of the mermaid on their quest to become human again, mortals. So let's go ahead and talk about the characters. Now we meet a variety of other characters throughout these two volumes, but our two main characters are Yuta and Mana. Yuta has been alive for a very long time, I think roughly about 500 years, and he ends up running into Mata on his quest to find another mermaid to eat their flesh and become human again. Now, Mata's kind of an interesting character because she's pretty much a prissy bitch when we first meet her. She was raised by this village for the sole purpose of being a sacrifice. So they raised her until she reaches a certain age, a desirable age that they want, and then they feed her the flesh of the mermaid. Mana doesn't know that this is the flesh of the mermaid, she just eats it. If she doesn't become one of the soulless ones, which is what they call the twisted and mutated creatures that you can turn into if the mermaid flesh rejects you, then what they do is they kill her and eat her flesh because this is a village of mermaids. And one of the other mermaids tells Yuta, if mermaids eat the flesh of a maiden who has become a mermaid, they in turn gain her youth and beauty, and basically they become like clones of her. And that is the sole purpose for Mana's existence. Long of the short, Yuta saves Mana and she kind of ends up tagging along with him on his quest. And they meet a boatload of other people. They solve a lot of problems revolving around the flesh of the mermaid. And honestly, no one has a happy ending who has ever come across a mermaid, in all honesty. Like, it is just one travesty after another. And that's really it for the characters. You meet a ton of characters, and none of them have any more than just like a passing episode or two, so I really didn't want to talk about them. So, final thoughts. Some of the storytelling in these 2 volumes isn't linear. We have our initial setup where we meet Yuta and Mana, and then we kind of flashback for a couple volumes, well, like episodes, where we learn more of Yuta's backstory. Sometimes we get flashbacks pertaining to the current situation that they're trying to solve, but it doesn't really disrupt the overall flow of the 2 mega volumes. I do find it funny that they just kind of Scooby-Doo themselves into these drama events involving mermaid flesh. I mean, granted, they are looking for it, but they just kind of just walk aimlessly throughout the world, or at least Japan, from one end of the island to the other, trying to find a real-life mermaid to, 1, confirm, and then 2, eat a bit of her flesh to become human again. The ending is left open. They save this little boy and they go off in the world and they tell him, they're like, hey, we may be back someday. We may not remember you, but you'll remember us because we'll look exactly the same as we do now. And they just kind of go off into the sunset. And I kind of like it that way, although I would kind of like to know whether or not they were able to regain their mortality. But this way, we're allowed to sort of envision it ourselves, and I believe that one day they did. They have some children together, and they live happily ever after. The end. That's my ending. Because I like happy endings sometimes, although I don't always write happy endings. Yuta really doesn't have a lot of character development throughout the course of the 2 volumes. You know, he pretty much is who he is. Although I think Mana helps him to sort of regain some of his connection to humanity and wanting to not be alone and connect to other people. Because after 500 years of coming across one person after another, you know, I think he was, if I remember correctly, married at one point and his wife died. You know, you kind of don't want to make connections, but seeing as Mana is an immortal herself now, he can create this connection. They start out as sort of being friends with each other, although I do think that has developed by the end of it into a very light romance. Now, Mana, on the other hand, she goes through a huge development throughout the course of these 2 books. She starts off as very spoiled, entitled, knowing nothing about the outside world, to actually like throwing hands a couple of times and holding her own against monsters and other creeps, and she won't abandon Yuta, but she also has like a lot of this empathy for some of these other characters that are kind of, some of them are kind of weird. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but she becomes a better person. She goes from like being, oh my god, to just being like, alright, let's go do this shit, come on. So she becomes like more grounded, more, you know, all that other fun jazz. And I ended up liking her by the end of it, which is unusual because typically annoying characters stay annoying to me no matter what their growth is. So there you have it. That is my brief review of the Mermaid Saga. Go check it out for yourself if you think this is something that you like, especially if you like Inuyasha and Ranma 1/2. Do not forget to like and subscribe. I post videos once a week talking about writing help, book reviews, or manga reviews as in this case, and I do character dives. And if there's anything that you want me to look into, be sure to comment down below and let me know. And also, one final thing before I step off. My book, The Hidden Temple, comes out in the world on January 18th. You can find it online or request it from your local indie store, whatever you would like to do. And if you weren't able to come to the virtual release event, go ahead and check out my video for that. It is on my channel. And if you'd like to see what else I'm doing on the interweb, please be sure to go ahead and follow my other social media accounts. I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Well, that is all that I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the week, and I will see you next time. Bye!